A very good morning, all of you. I'm Nabila. Thank you very much for joining us at our 5th edition of our India Today South Conclave. It's my absolute pleasure today to be hosting a bunch of really talented women who are smart, who hold their ground, and who yet deliver on the expectations the society has. I'm going to try and capture from them on their challenges and how they wade through their daily lives and yet thrive. Thank you very much for joining us. Can I please have on stage Dr R Bindu, Minister for Higher Education and Social Justice of Kerala. A big round of applause for her, please. We also have Methil Devika, who is a dance exponent and academician, who is a two-time award winner for her Mohiniyattam. She is part of the Oscar contention for her works as well, so a real pride for India. We also have Mridula Ramesh, who is an author, founder of the Sundaram Climate Institute, a vociferous voice for climate change. She'll be giving us a sense on how climate change impacts women. That's an area of interest for me as well. Thank you very much. A big round of applause again, guys. Right. Thank you very much for joining us. I know this must have been... I'd like to start here and begin with, not to sound too... I'll get straight to my question. What were the challenges to come to this stage, this event here today? What was your routine right from the start of the day? Why don't you start, Ms. Bindu? How did you start the day today?
First of all, I'll wholeheartedly thank the organizers for inviting me to this conclave. I have many meetings today, so it's difficult for me to spend much time here. But at the same time, I want to share my concerns associated with the gender ideology existing in society, because it largely influences the power structure.
Yes.
So, as an activist, I am interested in changing this scenario. I want it to be a public sphere which is women-friendly, transgender-friendly.
Lovely.
Our Indian society is primarily hierarchical, pyramidal, and women reside at the bottom. A sincere approach should be there to change it.
This platform here today is one step towards that.
Yeah, I think so. Because India Today is an established journal, so it will be nice to meet people here and to exchange my ideas with them. So it will reach a wide audience.
Absolutely, Ms. Bindu, and it's our absolute pleasure to hear you out. The reason why I started right from your routine of this morning is to just give a perspective to our viewers here on where we're getting at. The challenges of a woman, right? It's a daily struggle, and not to sound as if we're victims of it. We're thoroughly enjoying it. I'm sure all of y'all are enjoying that journey. But it's just to empower the bunch who are possibly idolizing you and looking up to you, because it's hard. It's not easy. I'd say that time and again. Ms. Bindu, give us your routine. What did you start your day with? What did you do today right from the morning?
Meetings and meetings.
And?
And as ministers, we have to meet people also. It's a busy schedule. At the same time, there are the responsibilities associated with the family-centered ideology. Yes. Wherever I go, I take my house in my head.
Yes.
That is very difficult for us to completely eradicate that familial obligations.
How are you? Have children, ma'am?
Yeah, I have only one. He is 30 years old, but still the family-centered ideology is haunting me throughout my career. That is there.
So you check on your 30-year-old boy?
Yeah.
A mother will be a mother.
Yeah.
And this is, you say you carry your home on your phone all along, right? Your family members, do they contribute at home for you? Because you're a minister, you have a lot more bigger responsibilities.
Yeah, sure. But at the same time, we cannot completely ignore such responsibilities associated with the domestic friend. That is the peculiarity of our power hierarchy. Actually, we have to reconceptualize our family structure based on democratic sharing, love, and mutual respect. Then only we can aspire to be a democratic and equal society.
Absolutely. And I'll get to that later. I wanted to make a statement here, but maybe it could wait for a little while. Devika, who's a dancer herself, she's made India proud on several platforms. Devika, why don't you give us a sense of your day right from the start today?
As of today, I didn't have much of a challenge because I think it was pre-planned, except that I had to, I think, reorganize my class sessions and had to convince a couple of my students who were in different time zones that I had a very important session today. And apart from that, of course, I wished I had, I had multiplied myself on other levels where you have to make the food, close the doors, stuff like that. But otherwise, it was pretty airy-fairy, I must say.
Right. Does anyone else take up responsibility for that, or is that your?
Not really. My son's he's not with me now. He's studying in Bangalore. He was with me, but as of now, it's just myself who's fairly easy.
So it's fairly easy for you, Mridula.
I'll sort of go back to when school opens because I think that's a more relatable day. I think it starts with that half an hour, 45 minutes before you get the kids to school. I mean, it's like a set of tasks of a choreographed ballet dance. If one goes off kilter, your whole day falls apart. And, I think we all need to keep that in mind because if any solution that you put for any problem in the world doesn't work with that degree of pressure, it's going to fail. The one thing that comes to mind when I try to navigate my day, actually two things. One is trade-offs, and I think we spoke about that before. I think if you're navigating a career or couple of careers and children, you have trade-offs every day. And I think, there are things you can't do. You can't cook every meal. The meals won't be of that great quality. You will not be present for every school activity. It's not going to happen. Right? And in meetings, you can't meet everyone you want. You can't travel as much as you want. There may be that extra bit of networking that you need to do or that extra sales push. You can't do it. And I think that those trade-offs come as part of life. The thing that I'm most grateful for is family support. And I really echo what the minister said, that you have to rethink families because my kids, I couldn't have managed to come here with my kids if my mother hadn't helped me. I can't travel if my husband doesn't help me. So I think those two, trade-offs and family support.
When you say trade-offs, I translate that to sacrifices. I would translate that to sacrifices.
I would rephrase that as prioritization. Prioritization. I mean, you have to give up your nice to haves to focus on the need to haves. I think that's really important. And that is very central to something that is increasingly spoken of today, which is identity. You have to be clear of what you are, what you want, and focus on the need to haves that support that vision.
Why I started with that is because all of us know three of your achievements. I've introduced you all as fabulous women who have really thrived in your respective fields. But a little insight into your personal life gives us an understanding on the challenges that you face on a daily basis. How far in your daily lives do you really believe that patriarchal traditions so ingrained that you can't fight it? It's a society that is patriarchal. You really cannot possibly do anything to change that. And it's ingrained, not just, subconsciously ingrained even in your minds. All of us are accepting of it, in a sense. Would you say that, Mridula? I'll start with you this way.
See, let me be perfectly honest. In my life, patriarchy has taken a back step. When I started my life, I worked for my father. I started my life, not too many people know this, as a truck mechanic. So, under the truck, I can strip and put apart a truck, or at least I could 20 years ago. So my family has been very supportive, working women, working grandmothers, mother-in-law, mothers, aunts. So that was kind of the norm in the
All
family.
of you all have worked, no doubt, but handling the house is also your duty?
100% family falls on the woman. That's why I completely support what the minister says, that rethinking needs to happen, right? That today, when I talk to 70% in one company that I help run is women. 81% of another company that I run hire is women. I think every day the leave that they put, my child is not well, my mother-in-law is not well, my husband is not well. The husband may not be working, may not be contributing to the family,
Correct.
but he will not lift a hand to look after his mother or his child.
Correct.
The woman is expected to step up. I think that norm has to change.
Right? Devika, responsibility of a family on you, career is secondary, is usually the way it's looked at.
Yeah. Obviously, because, the society has ingrained in you certain stuff. I'd like to give a small example from my own form where they speak of the Mugdha Nayika as somebody who is very young and immature and starts asking questions. And the Pragalbha was very mature. But it is time to rewrite all that, because how is the Pragalbha mature? Is she matured by social conditioning, or has she fallen into norms? So for me, to come back to your child consciousness and to have the fearlessness to ask questions as to is this how it should be there. It is very important today that we even rewrite terminologies. Most of the time this is all, we've taken it for granted that unless we are in a different situation, we wouldn't understand that we are also a part of the entire system.
Yeah.
So I'm working, I think I'm very articulate with my performance than my words, but I think the present work that I'm doing is a conversation between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And that is a work that I'm doing. So most of the time we don't even have women composers for dance. We've only had, a Swati Tirunal or a Niraiman Thambi or, the Dikshidhar. They are fabulous, but I'm saying to talk about women as an entity and our sense of love, longing, vatsalya, everything is so different. So what happens now is you have to pretty much write your own script to get it translated and bring it out to the public. So it is only unless you step out of your domain and start talking to other people that you understand, hey, there's a problem. For example, my own art form, right? If you look at performing arts in general, it may look very, we have even engendered art form. We have engendered subjects.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about just male or female. A performing arts or a subject in humanities seems feminine, right? So it is a challenge for me, especially in the projects that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a challenge.
The fact that we are speaking of it, I'd say that again, is wonderful. It possibly is a breakthrough for many other women who are following suit. Ms. Bindu, how intrinsic is a patriarchal mindset in your surroundings, within your ecosystem, even as a minister and your daily functioning? Would you want to quote some examples for us?
As a minister, for the time being, I am relieved of my responsibilities associated with family, especially the kitchen. But before that, I was working as a college teacher. I was the mayor of the city, and I was actively involved in politics. During those days, it was really difficult for me, and it was like a journey through embers, walking above embers.
Yeah.
Walking through fire. It was very difficult for me. For each and every woman, it will be like that, because it's very difficult to cope up with the family-centered ideology and to be actively involved in the public sphere.
Absolutely, especially politics. I'm sure, I can't even imagine the kind of
Yeah.
walls you had to shatter to, and people to convince.
Yeah, and as Methil Devika has put it, a proper mindset is being built up by conditioning individuals, even from their childhood. The boy's place is this, girl's place is this. The boy is given guns. We have to begin with the politics of toys. Boys are given guns. they have to be aggressive. This is a silent call for them to be aggressive. And girls are given utensils, Barbie dolls, kitchen sets. You have to play with kitchen sets. Your place is the kitchen. This is part of our social conditioning, even from the childhood itself. So the primary place allocated for a woman in this family-centered ideology is kitchen, or largely family.
Correct.
100 years ago, a slogan echoed in Kerala's public sphere, that is, Adukkalayil ninna Arangathekku, from the kitchen to the public sphere. Even after 100 years, we miserably fail to fully realize it.
Yes.
Yeah. Now we have Kudumbashri movement, which is being presented as a very proud organization for women. But still, the responsibilities associated with the family, they are still there without being shared.
Yeah, you don't speak about it aloud, you just embrace it. And a lot of women do it with absolute pride. Like I said, this is ingrained so much in the system and within ourselves that at one point I hear women say very proudly, yeah, it's my responsibility and I do it with a smile, I have no qualms in delivering it. While a lot of them are happy to do it, a lot of them may not, they just go along with it. But, and maybe now is the right time to say it after we've said enough and maybe in a way thrown a shadow on the men. I'd still like to clarify, thank you for all the men in all of your lives and mine for the encouragement and the nurturing and the fact that we are thriving here today. I think that credit also goes to the men in our lives. I'm sure all of you all would agree.
Yeah.
So, because it's, you know, unconscious conditioning even on them. They're just playing the role and are the outcome of tradition. So, can't really blame one another. But maybe time to rewrite that or change it in every sense. Ms. Bindu, as you're a Minister of Education here in the state, Kerala is known to be one of the most literate states. When you speak of education among women, would you give us some statistics to show how Kerala women are a lot more empowered? There's a lot of praise for Kerala and education. Tell us more in the women front.
In the case of participation of women in higher education, 56% of girls participate in higher education sector in Kerala. This is the highest in the nation. But still, our female literacy rate and educational participation are high. But still, the problem of agency should be noted. The agential capacity, the intervening capacity, that is comparably low in Kerala. So we have to raise the level of agential potency among girls and women.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one of my questions, Devika, I'd like to ask you on that, on the right we have on our own bodies when it comes to the reproductive system itself and the decisions that we want to make to have a child or not, the kind of influence that family has on that decision to do with your body.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of it is changing. I don't think we should go back to that, you know, now in this postmodern era, all these differences are now narrowing down. But personally, in my spaces, I think I do an art form called Mohiniyattam, which has been dictated also by, you know, it has had its leanings in matrilineal society, but it is also dictated by a patriarchal system who impose the concept of lasya and sensuousness. Now, if you ask me, when people see dance, they see dance like more of a commodity fetishism. There is the problem of ageism, which is very rampant on stage. People above the age of 60 hardly get an opportunity to perform.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens to them? There's this mass of, you know, there's this wealth of information they've had for themselves. And what happens to that? And it was during the COVID period that we really didn't understand that, you know, what, especially artists, what do we make out of our art? So there are these expectations. You're expected to, you know, look good, or you're expected to, you know, churn out stories, you know, about characters. And the moment you talk about social responsibility, you know, people raise their eyebrows. The moment you're not talking about the Sakhis or the Nayikas longing for the Sakhis, it's a different story altogether. But for me, even this whole aspect to do with your body, for my recent project with Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, I think that is a project, I would say it's an arts integrated project into advanced science.
Yeah.
And that is one of the major projects that's happening now under ISRO. So, you know, when I presented the project, it was a part of a larger, it's just a small part of a larger project. But I did understand that, you know, when we were talking, when we were talking about making or putting our domain into another space, it did seem like, at many times seemed like, you know, a feminine subject getting into the domain of a macho, you know, advanced science subject. But I think it is important to have permissibility and permeability right now. If we keep talking about, you know, the women's bodies, I don't think, or other reproduction issues, I don't think we're going to solve matter. I think the thing is, the conquering is more in the seeking than in, you know, bantering about the past. I think we create examples and let them know, hey, we are here to do this. We have something to offer you. So we're talking about arts, you know, the national education policy, which comes in 2030. It has to start right there from the education.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. You know, Mridula, if I could wade into this, I know your daughter is here with you. You're a responsible mother. You've been, you know, bringing her, at least moving her around wherever you're going, because that's your responsibility. You like it, I suppose, as well. But we did have this talk on idolizing how a perfect mother should be. I mean, the society branding a good mother, a bad mother. You know, if you're not focused around the child's education, or you're not really guiding the child the right. I don't know what is right or wrong anymore. But this whole idolizing a perfect mother, how do you look at that?
Let's take mothers from the wild, okay? You see a tiger mother, right? Mothers very differently, kills the prey while she's mothering. She's fully pregnant and she's still hunting.
Yeah.
Right? You see king cobras who leave their children. You see turtles which, you know, leave their hatchlings and go away. I think there is no one size fit all. And I think that's something we have to take away. And again, I mentioned trade-offs again and again. My mother is here, my daughter is here. I think, you know, it's something you carry with you. You can't split those two parts.
And what are the trade-offs for you? You said something to me. What are the trade-offs? What has been the trade-off for you?
I have to define, again it comes back to identity. What do I want to get out of my career, and you know, I'm very privileged to be able to make that call. And what is the most important thing I can do for my children? I can't focus on the nice to haves. I can't make them a cake or, you know, make sure the vegetables are washed or sit in, you know, all the things that would be nice to have.
Every PTA meeting, every class.
And you know, on the men thing that you said, my husband takes the lion's share. Otherwise, I cannot do what I'm doing. So, you know, without my husband or my mother's help, I can't do what I'm doing. So, very clear on that.
And your subject is also something of a great interest. You did speak of climate change and how climate change impacts women more, in your view. Give us a little understanding on that. How it sharpens inequality.
Okay. See, climate, everybody who talks on climate talks on cutting carbon emissions, right? India should cut carbon emissions. Sure. And we're doing a pretty good job. We're getting our carbon intensity down big time while we're growing. But what is less talked about is that India is probably the most vulnerable country to climate change. And none of us from here, we've had the floods. We have Chennai, which goes between flood and drought every 2 years, right? And what climate change is worldwide is it's the most inequalizing force. Any, you know, lever of power, it hits that and makes it more unequal. I'll just talk about one thing about women.
Yeah.
Violence. We talk about that very often in India, violence against women. There are studies in the US that says for every degree of increase in temperature, domestic violence goes up by 7%.
Oh.
There is a study I have spoken about in my last book, which has looked at a decade of data over India and found that every time rainfall drops by a standard deviation, dowry deaths go up. Okay, and it's a consistent finding because, you know, it's very inhumane, but people think you kill your first wife, marry a second wife, it's income during a time that your income falls during a drought. So, and if you take floods, the children get sick, who has to take care of them at home? It's the woman, which means less time to work, less time to make a contribution, less leisure. So I think that's something that we need to talk about. When we talk about climate justice and climate vulnerabilities, we do need to acknowledge
very interesting
that
perspective, never thought of that. And it sounds about right, Ms. Bindu. Would you agree?
Yeah, I perfectly agree. 70% of Indian women are victims to domestic violence. This is an accepted fact. So it's very difficult for a woman to realize her complete potential in such a context. This is the specificity of Indian situation. Compared to other countries, India has become the most dangerous society for women to live. That's it. There are certain historical reasons for this. It's a curious combination. Indian society is a curious combination of the remnants of degenerated feudalist roots and market-oriented ethos of capitalism.
Right.
Both these anti-women values associated with these systems crumble down women. So we are being compelled to live in a suffocating atmosphere left by the degenerated values of feudalism combined with the market-centered attitudes associated with capitalism. That is what is being seen
And the
in India.
fact of the day today. But we've come a long way as we're already run out of time. Devika, would you like to give me a sense of how far we've come as a woman? Personally, and what we see in a society today, more number of women into becoming entrepreneurs, into every field and every stream of work. You see women, but yet the irony is in offices, in corporate offices, the number of women have reduced in compared to the past. Over the last few years, the statistics show lower number of women in the corporate structure. Not too sure if women are going back to the traditional way. Don't know what that is really all about, but Ms. Bindu, your take on that?
Yeah, that's because of the neoliberal policies, obviously.
So policy is not supporting women enough.
Yeah.
And women in politics, representation itself so low.
It's very low. It's very low.
How would we change that, ma'am, quickly?
Yeah, we have to make an attitudinal change in the society. Then only we will be able to overcome all these hurdles. We have to change the attitudes. We have to change women also. Actually, now women are seen as passive objects, not as active agents. Women themselves have to reconceptualize themselves as active agents who can intervene in the public sphere, who can talk about all these things.
Lovely. Devika, finally.
In my fraternity, the women's representation are pretty high, I must say. Even a lot of women's narratives are also there. And I think in my sphere, there is, because there is something so sanctimonious about the space of a performer, of an Indian, I would not say classical performer, because again, the correct translation of, Shastriya Nritta is not classical. I think it should be scientific dancing, because the moment you say classical, you're talking about mass also, right? So there's a discrimination happening there. So, but in my sphere, people don't enter that sphere very, very fast. So you're more liberated to talk about issues. And also to delve into women's narratives where you could question writers, you could question the Puranas, you needn't eulogize deities, but you can humanize. You can humanize gods or even women. And that is where the connect is. You can find legitimate endings to problems that were never solved in the past, right? And women have gone a long way, I must say, but there is still miles to go.
A long way to go, absolutely. A final word from you, Mridula.
So, see, I think this, again I'll come to the word trade-offs and make it about prioritization. So easy to play the victim card and say, oh, all this is stacked against me. But in my life, I've always found within each of us, there is some power Maybe you cannot become the president or something like that, but you can. There
Why
is a
not?
president. There is a
Why
president.
not?
There is a president.
No, don't you dare
but,
say that.
No, but every day comes with a hope that there is a power that you can take and you can act. Maybe small, but if you build on it over time. Working as a woman is not easy. Let's be very honest.
Correct.
But it is infinitely rewarding. Okay, I'll leave it there.
Absolutely. All of us have ambitions, as much as responsibilities are, as much as you embrace it, there's also a burning fire to become successful in whatever respective fields that you're in. And congratulations for paving the way for many, many more women who are watching and looking up to you. Thank you very much for joining us here today. And as I would say, and if I may, Devika is a fabulous Mohiniyattam dancer. She's an award winner, and she has humbly agreed, for my humble request, she has agreed to do a small performance for us. A big round of applause for Devika. And if I may ask my other panelists to please be seated, and let's
Thank you.
watch Devika in action. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Bindu is Minister for Higher Education, State of Kerala.